Every video game has a vision for it. It has an identity that it wants you to portray. That identity could be a space wizard in Destiny 2, or it could be the gritty realization that you're fighting gods in Dark Souls. Manor Lords wants you to be a Manor Lord. It wants you to look after your citizens, it wants you to do the best things, and it wants you to fend off your countrymen to keep your citizenry safe. And it does it with a level of polish that you don't see in AAA games these days. So when I say this is developed by Slavic Magic and it's developed by one person, when you're watching this review, I want you to understand that this game has a better frame rate, is more stable, is better looking than a lot of games developed by large teams of AAA developers. I feel like this is an example of what happens when you have full creative control and vision over your baby. But before we look into that, we want to look at the settings menu to see the options that this game can deliver on. So in the options menu, you've got a full range of pretty much everything you want. I would say the only ways this could get better is if you took post-processing and split it off into multiple different settings. What types of post-processing are going on? What are the post-processes? And also have a visualization on the left-hand side here of what is actually being changed in the game. What is the difference between sharpening? Because I don't, and it says off, medium, and high. I might really like high sharpening, but I don't know because I have no visualization for it on the screen. But yeah, it has pretty much everything. It has a great range of AA options. It has a great range of DLS from performance, balance, and quality. Dynamic DLS as well, if you want the game to sort of handle it itself. It has full display mode, windowed, borderless, full screen, and full screen. It has extras like sharpening. It has shader, shadow, post-processing, which we've already talked about. Borderless lighting approximations. Volumetric clouds, terrain texture resolution, and also view distance for grass density, distance, and foliage quality. A great range of options. I am running an i7-9700K, I believe. 32 gigs of RAM and a 4070 Ti. I am running this at 1440p, ultra quality, no issues. Over 100 FPS, nothing, nada. It runs flawlessly. I haven't had a crash. I haven't had a jitter. In 15 hours, this game is polish, is perfection. To start off with here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into a new game. And we've got the Squirrel Empire here. We're going to pick just a random portrait. You see the variations of changes you can make to the flag and make it really your own is really a lot. It's the most I've ever seen in any game, is the level of customizability you can do just to a crest. And I think it really stands for the level of enthusiasm and passion this developer has for the product they're making. We're going to go with restoring the piece, and we're going to do just the default settings. So I haven't really changed much at all. The one thing that's actually a bit of a disappointment to me in this early access is the AI opponents. There are no AI opponents. There is an AI off map, and we'll have a look at that as soon as we get in. There's an AI off map, and there are raiders you fight, but there is no opponent you see on the map or see in the world that you face off against. It's all off screen. I'm really looking forward to them implementing the AI opponents, because for me, I think it will definitely help with the longevity of the game, because I want to face off against someone. I want to prove my worth against someone else, and at the moment I do feel like the game is missing a little bit of that, because as you can see, if I scroll out here, there isn't another faction on the map. We have this faction here, but he is not on the map. I can't go and find him and take him out. There's also the outlaw faction as well. While we're here, we can have a look at the diplomacy screen here, which I think is quite nice. You get to drag your options from the left here. You get to spend your influence to sort of speak to someone. I don't really interact with this system all that much. I don't think it really is fleshed out at the moment. Again, early access being early access. But it's a really nice implementation of it. I like the fact that you're drafting a letter before sending it off. I think that's really cool. The other slight issue I have with this map is the fact that you're red and they're green. It threw me off a little bit at the beginning. Also, I'm colorblind, so I would like a different distinction of which areas you control, because I had to have a friend explain this to me. One of the things you will find as you play the game, though, and as you build up your village, is that when you zoom out, you will start to see your town here grow and be identifiable on the map via its different buildings and things like that. Having the map edit itself in real time to sort of adjust for the changes you're making makes you feel like you're actually having a real impact on the world. So we're going to start off here. We're just going to get going. We're going to press the play. We've got multiple speeds down here. If you want to speed it up or slow it down, that's fantastic. We've got our resources up the top right. We've got our portrait with our treasury, our annual royal tax, king's favor, influence. Some of these I don't think are implemented right now because I've had no use for them in 15 hours. We've got our regional wealth, which I really like this regional wealth system, which we'll get onto a little bit later, I think. Your standard approval and then public order, as you would do, your population, and then your living space and your assigned families. Because this game works on a family system, not a population system per se. What we're going to do is we're going to place down a log camp and we're going to get the people working here. And as they do, I'm going to take a walk around. So the system doesn't work on a population system per se. It works on a family system. You do have population. That population does matter. But what it more works on is a system where it says, hey, you've had a family move into this building. And where do you want this family to be assigned to? Do you want them to be chopping down wood? Do you want me to be collecting berries? And it works on a family system. And that family will also do other things as well. You might assign them to collecting berries, but then the other family members inside that family might start working on a market stall, which will then help progress your buildings as that family shares its produce with other members of the village. And that's a really nice system and adds to how this game makes you feel like everyone is contributing to a specific goal. You're paving the road, but not necessarily steering the vehicle. You're saying, hi, why don't you collect berries? But it's only when you give the families enough opportunity and enough resources that they really start to make market stalls and contribute to the town in a meaningful way. As you can see here, the village is starting to build this log worker camp, and I wanted to show you this because I wanted to show the fidelity of the game. I wanted you to really look at this game and see how incredibly detailed it is, and that you can see every aspect of it as a third-person game. But it still runs at 170, 180 FPS right now, with no stutters and no flaws. And I think this is a really good example to see how it's been optimized so brilliantly. So our logging camp is done, and what we can do now is we can assign a family to that logging camp. And a family is going to come to this logging camp like this. You got husband and the son, and they are going to start felling trees. The other thing we've got here is homelessness. You start off with a homeless people's tent to start off with. And I think there is a small bug with homelessness, but they're working on it. And it really doesn't impact the game all that much as far as I'm aware. But we can start building a few houses here. And we're going to add some extra bits to the houses. We're going to make them big enough where they can have some extra space. And the reason I'm going to do that is because one of the major things to this game is your industry buildings, your farms, your mines, your gathering places aren't the only way of producing food or hide or weapons. And in some cases, it is the only way to produce specific things. Oh, here we go. I have heard of your renown and only seek to defend my right and my honor against those who would wrong me. I hope you would not judge me by the rumors and slander that some have spread about me. Okay, we're going to write back. So this is one of the things I really like this diplomacy system, because of the way I feel like you're actually conveying with the opponent here. Your time has come. You can declare a surprise war. But again, you may declare a surprise war, but you're not going to be attacking them directly. So how that pans out, I'm really not sure. And I'm really looking forward to that aspect of the game when it's implemented. You have no rightful claim. Right, let's do that. Let's really miff him off, because his area is here. So that's mine, that's his, and that's his. So I've said he's got no rightful claim to these two areas. So yeah, and that's a little bit of the diplomacy system. Not very deep, but I really like the implementation of it. So you can see our villagers here. They're working on a logging camp. We've got a family signed to that. They're doing their thing. If you press people, you can see directly where they are, what they're doing. I really, really like that. The fact oxes are in the game and other cattle, they're a massive, massive component, because some resource can only be taken to or fro with oxes, like tree branches, and other things have become a lot easier with them as well. Right, we've got our berries up here, so I want to put... We've already done our foliage hut, so that's no problem. There is also wild animals down here. Animals, you can see it's got a counter. When you make a animal hut, it will say how far down you want to let that counter get. Do you want to hunt the animals to extinction, or do you want to leave 5 to 10 of them there and let them breed back up again? So that's nice. And then berries will also grow and shrink seasonally. So if it gets to winter, the berry population will fall. So you want to make sure you're really harvesting these in the summer, autumn periods to make sure you're getting the most out of your berry deposits. And then in the winter, you can unassign your families from specific buildings. The families you assign to the forager's hut, you could actually reassign in the winter months to log chopping or firewood, things like that, to help out. The game does have that slight aspect of macro to it, which is quite nice. And this is the start of the game. You zoom out, you identify what rich deposits your area has, and you identify what maybe you're missing. So to be honest, I would like this rich berry deposit on the right hand side here. I might even like... This is very similar to me, but there's a iron deposit. There's a rich iron deposit over here. And some of these rich deposits do have different aspects. And those aspects are unlocked with the upgrade tree. So as you're leveling up your village, you can upgrade your buildings. And these do a number of things. It increases to your regional wealth over time. Regional wealth is how rich your population is. And then that is spent on trade. Anything that your village needs to acquire to keep running, that is what regional wealth is for. And then anything that you need to do as a lord is what your treasury is for. So an example to this is I might tax my villagers, and then I use that tax to mercenaries to defend the village from bandits. That is probably the best example I can think of right now to the difference between regional wealth and trade. But if I need to buy sheep for a sheep farm, that comes out of regional wealth, not trade. Treasury, sorry, not trade, but treasury. Yeah, if I need a trade for sheep for a sheep farm, that comes from regional wealth. So as you're upgrading your village, you then fulfill certain bars of entry to then level up your village. And with those levels, you can spend points to specialize your village into specific things. You can get sheep breeding. You can get your hunters to gather more meat and more other resources. You can set up trade logistics if you want to focus on trading. So really looking at the random procedurally generated area you've been given, and then identifying what's good. So I've got clay and stone, and deciding what I need to do to move this village forward is very, very important. And I really like that. I like that every run feels different because of the areas you've been given. You don't have the same opener like in a game for StarCraft, for instance, where every game might start off very similar. This game, it's right, pause the game, look around, see what I've got, see what I'm missing, and then make decisions based on that. And I think that's really, really cool. So what we go here, what we might do here is we've got rich clay deposit, we've got a rich clay deposit, and we've got a rich stone deposit. What we can do with the rich clay deposit is we can go charcoal burning and then deep mining. And with the deep mining, we can make this infinite, so it never runs out. Then what we can do is inside the mining, we can mine clay here, and then inside industry, we can make a clay furnace, and we can sell clay tiles from the clay furnace inside the trade hub, and then we can start really pumping our regional wealth. And when we can use that regional wealth to fill in our areas that we are going to be a little bit weak on, such as iron deposits, such as maybe some wild animals and some berries. So what we can do again is we can go over to our farm. When I find it, there it is, farmhouse, and we can have a look at see what can we farm in this land, what is good in this land to farm. We can have a look at Emir, if I'm saying that right. There's some pretty good area over here for this crop. What about flax? Flax, not so much. This area is not good for flax. Barley again, not great for barley. And maybe rye. We've got some good areas for rye over here, so maybe we can focus on some Emir and rye and see where we can go with that. But definitely probably going to be after buying in barley and flax for upgrades later on in the game. And this is the start of a Manor Lords playthrough, where you go in and you start building your houses and you make your little huts, and you start focusing on what do I need to do to progress my village. And what we can do is we can speed up a little bit here, and the months will continue. We're in March. March is a spring month, and that will have effects on the weather that we will be getting throughout the seasons as well. You can see down the bottom right here that seasonal deposits regrow in spring. In the summer, they might have drought. In autumn, it's more of a harvesting season. And then when it comes down to winter, you really got to prep for your winters with your firewood and your food, because nothing's going to grow and you're going to be using a lot more firewood. And if your housing isn't done properly, if you have people in homeless tents, they're going to freeze. So it's going to be a problem. So what we can do to fix that actually is we can upgrade that. It'll help a little bit. But we really need to be getting some houses up together so they can live. We also want to be assigning people to the foragers hunt. We want to assign people to the hunting camp so they can start collecting food for us. And we can see up here the number of months before supplies run out is showing us that we only have enough food for 3 months. Now, right now, that's not too much of a problem because we're going through spring and summer and autumn. But when it hits winter, we're going to really want more than this. And it's that level of balance that Manor Lords really does get quite well, where you've always got something to do. And if you don't have anything to do, it's probably because you're ready to upgrade your buildings in a very Anno style way, where the choices you're making to your village really meaningfully impact the upgrades that are going on. So we can build a marketplace here, and then our areas or our citizens, we build a marketplace, and our citizens here, you can see, have come and made a market stall. So what a market's for, in Anno, when you produce a certain amount of something, it's fine. It's done. You've made it. It's produced it. There may be an area of effect around a storage, and that affects the homes. In this game, it's a little bit different, where the people from the logging camp and the families that you assign to the foraging hut and to the hunting camp, they will make market stalls, because the men might go and chop trees, but some other family members might go and create market stalls to sell the goods that the forager hut is collecting. And from there, if we hover over the market and look at food, you can see that the marketplace is the area that distributes the food, which is really cool. I love this mechanic because, like I was saying earlier, it really adds to that feeling of the citizens helping each other out. They all come together to make their market stalls, and you can have it as like a centralized location in your town, and they will then spread what they are collecting to other areas. And I love this. You can see our food variety is just going up now. We've got one berry there because the foraging hut is coming here. And then you can see that this berry is now being distributed to the homes. We can click on it and we can see that the food stall supply is 1 out of 2. When we've got all of these aspects fulfilled, we can then upgrade this building to a level 2. That's going to add to regional wealth, which means we'll have more money as a village or a town at that point to really do something with. So we can put a well here so the people from the homes can collect that. And it is a very Anno system, but with its own Manor Lords spin on it. And I really, really like the way it's implemented, where it does feel like the citizens and the families are helping out to accomplish specific goals. We're going to move this over here. And the workers' camp we're going to dismantle at some point. So we're going to need storage. And we're actually going to need to build some more houses as well, because we want to start getting more and more citizens into our home in a little bit of a similar way of City Skylines, where people come to your village if it's good enough. So what we're going to do now is we're going to hot swap over to a save I have, so you guys can see a town that's a little bit more developed than that one. You see a little bit more of the end game of it. So this is probably the best village I've had so far. We've got 2 areas with 2 different villages. This one is focused on rich iron deposits and is sending the iron deposits back to my main village. And this place is actually done a very similar thing to what I described in the last village, which is they've got a clay deposit, they've got a deep mine on the clay deposit, and they are producing... Where is it? I need to just find it here. This is a little bit of a problem, is even on this tab view where it's like an overview of the area, you can see who's in what houses, who's in what buildings. It doesn't tell you what building is what, and I struggle to find the exact building I'm looking for here. So there is clay furnace. Here we go, clay furnace. So this place is producing clay tiles, and then I've got a trade post that is selling those clay tiles to bring us in some regional wealth. I am then taxing that regional wealth only a little bit, and I'm making enough money to then supply any armies I may need via the mercenary system. So if I need to go and kill some bandits, I can. And I think this is a good time to talk about how the mercenaries or your armies work, because it really does remind me of Settlers. It was Settlers 3 back in the day, where you're creating... Let's put it on normal so you can see people walking around. But you are harvesting resources and collecting resources. For instance, this iron mine in my other town is sending the resources back to this village, where they are then smelting that resource and sending it to the blacksmiths, which are inside of the homes of these villagers. And I did talk about this a little bit earlier on, where you don't just make a farm to then produce enough food to cover the whole village. Your village needs a lot of variety, and you may do that with a lot of things like chicken coops inside the homes of the villagers. This is done because back in medieval times, you wouldn't have massive chicken farms that produced enough chickens to cover the whole village. Everyone would chip in. Everyone would have like chickens or a small vegetable patch. And then that resource is then taken to the market to be distributed around the village. You can see here that distribution system I talked about earlier on, and it really, really helps, again, bring it together and bringing a village together to really make sure that everyone is working in unison to keep everyone else fed. And I absolutely love the way this system works. The other thing in this is you can adapt these buildings to become more than just chicken and vegetables. At tier 2, you can get them to really specialize into specific things. And it's actually one of the only ways of making weapons and shields for your people. Now that's because back in the day, you wouldn't have a blacksmith working out of a separate shop like we would these days. What you actually have is the blacksmith would have his smithy attached to his house, and then he would produce his swords and tools from his house essentially. And this game emulates that in a very, very cool way. So you can see here, this guy is making shields and this guy is making sidearms. And then from that, I am building a stockpile of those weapons. At which point, I then can recruit a militia of citizenry, and it will assign that weaponry to that citizen, and they will create a militia. Now, what's really interesting is every single house stores that gear that is being created in their house. And when you then say, right, boys, rally up, they will go back to their houses, they will collect their swords and shields, and then they will come out to fight. And I really, really dig that. Again, it's makes me feel like this is a real village with real people, that I'm actually having an effect on the village itself. It's not just I'm calling a bunch of people up, I'm calling my village up to fight. Now, I can't get into a fight right now because I have no bandits, which is a shame, but it's a very sort of Total War-esque system. And I really hope it's expanded on later on with an enemy AI to fight and conquer. Because right now, not having him on the map is a little bit like, I want to go and fight him. I want to see what he's doing. I want to see what he's up to. And I want to go and have our armies engage in war. And you can't do that. It's just the fact he's not on the map makes me feel a bit meh about it. But that's coming, all right? That he is developing on that. But I wouldn't buy this product if you're excited for that, because it's not in the game right now, and anything could happen, right? You need to buy a product for what the product is right now. So from here, we have 2 sets of militia. We have a number of different orders for that militia. Disband unit, which doesn't disband the unit, it just sends them home, so then you can rally them up again. Run position and hold. We also have a number of stats and fatigue and morale. And if you played Warhammer, you're very, very familiar with the system, where fatigue increases how good they are at fighting, or how well they are fighting. If their fatigue gets lower, if they get tireder, you make them run to a location and fight straight away. They're going to be worse off than if you get them to run to a location and then wait a few minutes and then engage in combat. Morale, when the morale drops to 0, they will disband instantly and run away. So you want to sort of weigh up your options here and your tactics to then fight the enemy in the best possible way. You can also hire archers to fire from the backlines and stuff like that. But yeah, and at the moment, this is Manor Lord. I think this is the basics of where they're starting with the game. We don't have a lot of the developments that are inside the tech tree right now, and I'm really interested to see where he goes with this. Also, the policy system, that's quite interesting. He's only touched on it very slightly, but it's be interesting to see where this goes and how you get your upgrades. It's things for like when your village is struggling, you can enact policies to help alleviate some of those issues for negative effects. For instance, citizens skip every 5th meal, reducing food consumption but decreased approval. And wild animals on rich deposits breed twice as fast at the cost of 50% reduction of yield of crops. So if you are an area that has a lot of wild animals, rich wild animals, but not a lot of good land to farm on, which to be fair, this is very similar to the last game. We can have a look here, we can go to the farm, and we can see that there's not a lot of really good land here. So if we did have a wild animal crop in this area, we would be able to add a policy to this area that really helps us with that. Now, as far as I'm aware, the policies and the development are village specific, so you can tailor your villages to specific areas, because it really is a case of you're not going to be able to cover everything. You're not going to be able to do everything the village needs in one village. You have to make multiple villages and spread out and really have an interconnected trade system to focus on that. But yeah, that is Manor Lord. I think an absolutely fantastic start of a game. A brilliant, brilliant example of early access. And I'm really excited to see where this game goes and revisit it in 1.0. So I hope you enjoyed my video, and please hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it. And I will see you again next time.